I have this set up, the steering knuckle, so it sits quite squarely. I have my old bearing race there to rest the new bearing inside race upon, and all the weight is really squarely against that race. Once again, we're going to give ourselves every single advantage. We'll spray down that with a little WD-40. Now let's see if we can get that hub beat into place. Make sure she's staying lined up squarely. And the other thing, yeah, that'll be okay. Make sure that stays squarely where you want it to be, and we will continue our beating here. She's going down. Now I don't know the exact location of where that hub is pressed in fully. That is one thing I do not know. I don't know how much clearance I should have there. I honestly don't. And I don't know how you find out. I don't want to go too far, I'll guarantee that. I don't know how far to press that hub on. So, we're going to have to figure that out. Alright, I got both sides of the hubs pounded in there, and it seems to work fine. They spin without making any noise. So I think we're going to be okay there. I just wanted to point out, you pretty much either press this or pound this till it bottoms out. A lot of the other videos aren't very clear about that. And so I just thought I'd mention that. Same thing with this bearing here. There's a lip right there, and you just pound until that bearing bottoms out on that lip. And then, of course, you put your snap ring in before you put on this, this hub. And the last thing we have to do is put on the dust shield. Now, this dust shield right here. Speaking of dust shields, you see this one here? You could take this thing off and it would prevent this getting beat up. Mine were beat up to begin with, and quite often you'll find in old Hondas they will be. A lot of times they just rust right off too. But I figured there's no way I was going to get them screws out without breaking them off. So I didn't even try. So yeah, I banged up the dust shields a little bit, but I could just bend it back into place. They were not perfect to begin with. They're no worse than they were. One last thing, this is not an anti-lock brake car. If it was an anti-lock brake car, I'd have to worry which way this bearing goes in. My other side, I bought these bearings at two different times from the same store, but one had rubber seal on both sides. This has a steel on one and rubber on the other. I don't think it makes a hill of beans worth of difference which one you put in, which side you have facing. So I just put it in. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this dust shield in place. If you had a car with anti-lock brakes, it does matter which side you have the bearing on, and they'll give you instructions what to do so. Usually it'll be the brown side. I think the brown side goes toward the inside. It's the side with a little magnet in it. I know that you can touch it with a screwdriver, and that's how the anti-lock brakes work. This car does not have anti-lock brakes, so we don't have to worry about it. So we'll just tap this little seal into place, and then we can put this back on the car. Alright, let's put this piece of shit back together. First thing I gotta do is I gotta wipe off my splined axle shaft because it got a certain amount of crud on it. But I'm also going to put grease on it. And if you took yours apart and it was hard to get apart and this was dry, put some grease on it, because if you ever have to take it apart again, and if you keep the car a number of miles, you probably will, if you're not replacing your CV axles at this time. Boy, this would be a great time to replace your CV axles. I'm not gonna replace them, but it's an excellent opportunity to do so. I actually replaced these CV axles just a few thousand miles ago, so I probably should have replaced my wheel bearings then. But you know what? As you can see from this job that I did here, from this video, you can see why I probably didn't want to replace my wheel bearings unless I absolutely had to. And when I did that job, the wheel bearings weren't complaining at all. If this had the standard type of wheel bearings, not standard, but the more common type where you have the just 3 bolts holding a pillow block on, I probably would have replaced them. But as you can see from this video, this is a certain amount of a pain in the ass. So, we got our assembled hub and steering knuckle and bearing assembly. So we will stick this on here like this. Get it around the shaft. I don't believe this is keyed. I think any way that you can get it on is good. Come on, don't be such a bear. There we go. I think we got her. We'll get our lower ball joint in. There we go. The axle popped in for a second there. I was worried that maybe somehow I damaged the splines, but it was just a matter of alignment. What we'll do here now is we will put a little bit of anti-seize compound on our threads of our ball joints. And like I said, when you do a job like this, it's a good idea to now they say, a lot of people say, don't put anti-seize compound, don't let it get on the tapered, on any of the tapered connections. I don't worry about it too much. I've never had any problem occur from it, so I guess to each his own on that. All right, I've been using up the balance of what I had left on several memory cards for this video. I don't know how much is going to get lost or not. I'll find out when I start putting the video together. But at any rate, if any of this didn't get on, I basically cleaned up that spine shaft a little bit, wiped it off the rag. Mine was already kind of greasy, but had some crud and some rust that fell on it. So wiped that off the rag, put some nice new grease on it, put anti-seize compound on these ball joint studs, and now I'm going to put a nut on a ball joint stud to keep it from coming out on the lower one. Get that in there. Got to find out what is the right one for the job. Lower ball joint takes a pretty big, takes the big nut on this car, and got to put a little anti-seize compound on those threads there. These are castle nuts, so we'll have to put a cotter pin through it and make sure it lines up with the holes, but for the time being, we're just going to get her on there finger tight so we can put everything else together. So that's in there like that. Upper one, I already got my anti-seize compound on, so we will now lift this up. I'll get a jack and jack that up, so just hang on for a little bit while I take care of that. I got a clear hole through my where my bolts go, so I don't have to worry about drilling that. I will have to drill the tie rod end, and I will have to drill the upper ball joint stud, draw out the remnants of the old cotter pin. So we know that's in our future. All right, so now I'm going to drill out those bolt holes, those holes in the stud, so I can get a new cotter pin through them. There's one. Now I'll just spin it. These are got holes 90 degrees apart from each other, so it makes it a little bit easier to get a cotter pin through it, through the castle nut, at the exact right position. The only thing you've got to be careful on this is you don't want to break a drill bit off in this sucker. Then you'll be a sad puppy. There we go. Okay, I got the tie rod one done. Now I'm going to do this top ball joint one, it's kind of the same process. I'm going to jack this up. And I've let the steering knuckle, at least I can try to let the steering knuckle support the ball joint stud so it doesn't just flop all over. And I'm going to, you can't see this at this angle, I'm not going to adjust the tripod, I'm just going to shut this off. It's the exact same deal as what I was doing before. Alright, this only took me about 5 or 10 minutes, but I drilled out them holes where the rusted out cotter key was through, going both directions too, because that makes it a lot easier to get it to its torque spec and able to get the cotter pin through. So I did the upper and the lower ball joint, the same deal, got them drilled out. Tie rod end, I got that drilled out there so we can get a cotter pin through there really nice and easy. It's well worth taking your time to get that done, drilling both holes, and it'll make things easier, you know, as you go down this road. So take your time to make things easier. I know there's a lot of times it's tempting to just go ahead and give her hell, but more often than not, especially with older cars that are rusty, give yourself every opportunity, every advantage you can have before you even start the work, because it'll pay off. More often than not, it'll pay off in the long run. Okay, so now we will put the rest of this car together. Now it's just a matter of putting on those castle nuts, putting the cotter keys through the castle nuts, or torquing the specs and then putting the cotter keys through the castle nuts. And then from there on in, there's not much difference between this and doing a brake job. All right, let's get these torqued up to specs here. And there's always something about torque, okay? Because what I got here is a situation where there isn't enough room, that steering knuckle arm comes down the way, I can't squarely get the torque wrench on the nut there. So what would you do? You use a universal, but you know what? Using a universal is going to screw up my torque setting. So often, you know, you always hear people go, oh, you got to torque everything, okay? And then I think, well, at least with this video purpose, I'll show people the proper way to do it. And then you got a situation where you can't apply proper torque for whatever reason anyway. So it's kind of nerve-wracking. But there it is. That's it said 35 pounds for a ball joint. So there we go. 35 pounds with a universal. What does that work out to be? Who knows? Okay, so now we'll do our lower ball joint. I know this doesn't get in the camera viewfinder. I know that. You can imagine where they are. I don't have a cameraman right now. You all know that there's a ball joint down here. I'm just going to tighten her up to specs here. There we go. Okay, now we'll look at the spec of the tie rod end and do that. It says 32 pounds for our tie rod end. So let's put our little castellated nut there and our tie rod in. Okay, that's good enough there. Now, we're not done yet because we got to put our cotter pins through. And there you have a situation where even though this has got holes going through at 90 degrees to each other all the way through these studs, you're still probably going to have to be backing off or tightening up enough to get a cotter pin through that hole. So either way, you're affecting your torque. I would imagine that tighter is better than looser. In this particular instance, I was lucky here. My cotter pin went through without even having to adjust the nut at all. So this particular one, at least, is at exact torque specs. Now we'll try putting the cotter pin through the lower. See what kind of luck I have there. Maybe I'll turn this so maybe, possibly, it'll be in the camera. Maybe I'll do that. I'll turn the steering that far. Maybe I'll adjust the camera so you can see it. And that way you don't really have to worry about not seeing what I did on the top one, because the bottom is exactly the same. Okay, now you don't have to worry about not seeing what I did on the top ball joint, because the bottom one is exactly the same. So we put on our torque wrench, we torque it to spec. Now we're going to stick our cotter pin through the hole, and hopefully we won't have to adjust it one way or another. My head's probably in the way of the camera, I'm sure. See, and then on this one here, all we got to do is tighten that up just a little bit more, and we'll be okay. I think tightening is better than loosening when it comes to getting a bolt through a castle nut. And I actually shouldn't be using my torque wrench here to go over the rated torque, but I did. That's just one thing I did. Not recommended, but that's what I did. Looks okay. Then we got a situation here where I bet what's going on here now is I will bet you that stud could be spinning, so tightening it isn't really doing any good at all. It's darn close though. Let's see if I can tap that cotter pin through without bending it. That's not going to happen. Okay. It's darn close though. It's darn close. I can see right through it, so I'm actually kind of surprised I can't get it through it. I'm going to take the 17mm wrench, and I'm just going to try moving this one way or another. Yep. Boy, howdy, I actually don't know why this cotter pin isn't. There we go. There we go. It was darn close. But that's the problem with those castellated nuts. You got to be kind of dead on to get that cotter pin through. And so that's that. Now, did I torque my tie rod end? I believe I did. Let me just double check here. Yep. Now let's see if we can, looks like it's got to go just a little bit tighter to get the cotter pin through. We'll try the one from the other angle here. See if it goes through on this side. I doubt if it will. They're, like I say, they're 90 degrees apart. There should be something other than 90, you would think. Because if it's 90 degrees apart, chances are if it fits through one way, it'll fit through the other. So here goes all our, you know, say goodbye to any kind of proper torque spec, because we're going to have to tighten this a little tighter so we can get that cotter pin through. We're almost lined up here now. But like I say, kiss your torque specs goodbye. But we got her through. And we definitely torqued a little bit higher than specs. But our only other alternative was to have it looser, and have it looser than specs. So you tell me what's better. Bend our cotter pin up here so it ain't snagging on a bunch of stuff. There we go. Now, from here on in, this job is just about like doing a brake job. So, if you're not interested in a brake job, or how to put together a car after you do a brake job, then you can we can say goodbye right now. And thanks for watching. If you like what you saw here, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or criticisms, put them in the comment section below, and I'm sure I'm going to have some on this one. Also, folks, remember to put on your nut when you're all done and torque it to spec. But that's the last thing you're going to do once you get the wheel on the car. So don't get overly excited and forget about that nut. You know, once you get those slugs, your lug nuts on, you're probably going to, okay, let's go test drive her. But make sure you put on that nut there and torque it to spec. Now, here's another thing about torque. See, I don't have a 3/4 inch drive torque wrench, and I don't have a 1/2 inch socket that'll fit over there. So yeah, you can kiss torque goodbye on that one too. So I gotta go with the torque specker really tight. This dust shield, it was banged up when I started this job. I know I banged it up replacing those bearings, but I just don't care because it's no worse than it was when I started. We got our wheel bearing on there, so that's a good deal. Everything seems to be fine there. So now it's just a matter of putting the brakes back together and getting this car back on the road. So the next thing we have to do is we have to put on a caliper bracket. That's the next thing we have to do. And we're also going to have to put on a rotor. So these rotors here, they are in nice shape wear-wise, but they got some rust here along the outside. So that's going to eat up the brake pads. So I'll clean that up as good as I can, and then we'll put this rotor on. Alright, now I'm beginning to wonder if anybody's ever going to see this video. We got on 3 different memory cards, because I was looking using the tail end of memory cards that I had pretty much full. And batteries on my camera died several times, so I don't know how much, between that and the memory cards getting full, I don't know how much footage I missed altogether. But we'll keep going. It's a pain in the ass to put this video together. You people better watch this damn thing. I'm going to shut this down because I don't know how much battery power or memory card life I have left.